Welcome to my weekly FPL video. In this welcome to the stream, guys. Let me know if you have any questions ahead of the next deadline. To be honest, I'm a bit insecure myself ahead of the next deadline. I'm really tempted to sell Bruno Fernandes. My main target would be SA, but should I just go with the team on the screen? Welcome play Lewis Hall, bench Bruno Fernandes. If you have any questions ahead of the deadline. Really tough decision, to be honest. Let me know what you think in the comments as well. Will be really appreciated. My main target would be SA, but should I just go with the team on the screen? Play Lewis Hall, bench Bruno Fernandes. Really tough decision, to be honest. Let me know what you think in the comments as well. Will be really appreciated. FPL mercy. Thanks for joining in. Please let me know if the sound is okay. Is the music too loud and my microphone too low? Please let me know in the comments. FPL FOMO, this is usually your job. FPL FPL FOMO benching Bruno this week. Only had him for 2 weeks. The thing is that really tempting, of course, to keep Bruno, but he has Liverpool next game week after he gets back from his ban. So Liverpool away at Anfield, not the best fixture, of course. There could be goals in that game, of course. It's a classic, but the thing is that when we consider, of course, to keep Crystal Palace fixtures going forward, I'm really tempted to sell Bruno, to be honest, and bring in SA. Only 6% owned. We know that he is on set pieces for Crystal Palace. He will share penalties with Mateta. We know that now, but I think that he is a good option. Really, really tempting. Crystal Palace fixtures. Is Gordon the best Bruno replacement? I think that Gordon is one of the best. We know that he is on set pieces. Bruno or Saka replacements, especially if you don't have Alexander Isak, I would definitely go for Gordon. But if you have already got Alexander Isak, I would be tempted, as mentioned, to go for someone like Esse. Kirkis to Munoz, 1 free transfer down. So we actually sold Kirkis ahead of game week 19. Already got Alexander Isak, I would be tempted. So if you didn't have any other fires in your team, it's probably worth it. It's an upgrade selling Kirkis, but I definitely think that Kirkis is a decent option at the moment. But of course, if you had nothing else to do, then selling Kirkis to bring in Munoz probably was an upgrade. If you didn't have any other fires in your team, it's probably worth it. It's an upgrade selling Kirkis, but definitely think that Kirkis is a decent option at the moment. But of course, if you had nothing else to do, microphone is kind of low. Surely Kirkis is a keep. I agree with Kirkis. I'm not sure that selling Kirkis at the moment is the best option, but I really like Munoz as well, so it's kind of hard to argue about bringing in Munoz. I agree with Kirkis. I'm not sure that selling Kirkis at the moment is the best option, but I really like Munoz as well, so it's kind of hard to argue about bringing in Munoz. Would you play Chris Wood if you have Pickford? I'd rather not, to be honest. So if you have another goalkeeper or another midfielder or attacker to play instead, it's probably better to maximize the points potential by not playing Chris Wood against Pickford, because the chances of them both getting points are really slim. So I would try to avoid playing Chris Wood against Pickford, but of course depends on your team and how it's set up. It's probably better to maximize the points potential by not playing Chris Wood against Pickford, because the chances of them both getting points are really slim. Don't have no other option. I'm on Trent, Gabriel, Castani, Mikolenko, and Kirkis. Was between Miko and Kirkis. Mikolenko with a double game week edges it. Yeah. So if you really was like really set on bringing in Munoz, then with your team, probably selling Kirkis was the best option. But Mikolenko with a double game week edges it. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully for you, if you really Crystal Palace can keep a clean sheet. Set on bringing in Munoz, then with your team, probably. At least, actually, it's the first time this season Crystal Palace, they are the bookies' favorites when it comes to keeping a clean sheet. They have a home game against Southampton, and they're 40%, as you can see on the screen. So Crystal Palace, they are favorites when it comes to keeping a clean sheet, and of course, Munoz really attacking as well. So he could haul in the next game week if he gets an attacking return with his clean sheets, of course. So as you can see on the screen, so Crystal Palace, they are favorites when it comes to keeping a clean sheet. Of course, Munoz really when I consider the Crystal Palace assets, I'm kind of jealous. I really want Crystal Palace assets in my team right now, but I don't have the transfers to bring them in. Only have one free transfer, Bruno, on my bench, so can't really afford myself to do a transfer for a defender. I'm kind of jealous. I really want Crystal Palace assets in my team right now, but I don't have the transfers to bring them in. I only have one free transfer, Bruno, on my bench, so however, as mentioned, I'm really tempted still to bench Lewis Hall, sell Bruno Fernandes, and bring in SA. However, as mentioned, I'm really tempted still to bench. I don't have any bench cover at all because I would have benched Bruno instead of selling for Isaac. Microphone is kind of low. I'll just try to. I don't have any bench cover at all because I would have benched Bruno instead of selling for Isaac. Hopefully this will make the microphone a bit louder. I'm not sure. Microphone is kind of low. I'm not good at those things when it comes to sound, especially when it comes to my microphone or the background music. So really appreciate all the feedback I can get on stuff like this. It's like easier when I make my videos, but when I'm doing those live streams, I'm not really monitoring the sound in any way. So I know that I probably should have had like a headset on and like monitored the sound while recording or while streaming, but easier when I make my videos. It is what it is. FPL FOMO, Pedro to Solanke for me this week, and maybe Flecken to Henderson for a hit. Know that I probably should have had like a headset. Totally makes sense to sell Joe Pedro at this point, to be honest. Is it 6 game weeks without a return for him? It is what it is. Solanke is nailed on as Tottenham's number 9, and they are playing really attacking football. Not been that good recently, of course, but Solanke could, of course, do well. Not sure that I would bring in Henderson, to be honest, but Crystal Palace defensive stats have been really good since game week 12, but I don't really think that Henderson is that exciting, but of course do well. We consider the fixtures is probably a decent move, selling Flecken, especially if he's out for long, and bring in Henderson. Well, but I don't really think that Henderson is that exciting, but of course do well. I know that it's probably a bit boring, but if I were to sell Joe Pedro this game week, if I had an extra transfer available, I would probably pick Chris Wood. No, it's kind of boring considering his ownership is like 25 or something like that, around 25. I know that it's probably a bit boring, but if I were to sell, but I think that he's a really good option. Game week, if I had nailed on and on penalties for Nottingham Forest with decent fixtures, so it's kind of boring considering that would be my preferred option. But I also like Mateta at the moment. We talked about the Crystal Palace fixtures, but of course, Lanky, if you can find the funds to upgrade João Pedro to Lanky, it's probably worth it. Pictures, so that would be my preferred option. But I also like Mateta at the moment. We talked about the Crystal Palace fixtures. Charlie, hello TFS. Hello, Charlie. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining in. Are you ready for the next game week? The game weeks, the deadlines are coming really fast these days, so hopefully you have been able to. Charlie, hello TFS. Hello, Charlie. Keep track of the deadlines and make your transfers and set your team ahead of the deadlines. I'm trying, actually, I think that really fast these days, so I think that for the last 10 game weeks, I think I've been able to do a Q&A like this, like 1 to 90 minutes, 1 hour to 90 minutes the night before the deadline, and I really enjoy it, to be honest. I'm trying, actually, I think that really fast these days, so I think that for the I think I'm set, made my transfer, just deciding on my bench. So what transfer did you make? Did you have Bruno Fernandes for the deadline? And I really enjoy it, to be honest. The most transferred out player ahead of game week 19, it's Saka, same as last game week. Saka has been transferred out by almost 500,000 managers. So what? The numbers were really extreme last game week, so when we consider transfers in and transfers out ahead of game week 18, it was like 2.5 million or something like that selling Saka, and it was close to 1.5 million getting Isaac in. So it was numbers were really extreme last really easy to see that a lot of managers like shifted some of their money from midfield to upgrade their attack. 2.5 million or something like that selling Saka, and it was close to 1.5 million getting Isaac in. So Charlie made Chris Wood to Watkins could be risky, but I'm very happy with 180 minutes against Leicester. I definitely like Watkins at the moment, especially for we know that Duran, he is suspended for the last he is suspended for the next 3 games. So it's actually more than 180 minutes. 270 probably at the moment, especially for we know that Duran, he is suspended. So Aston Villa, they handed in an appeal, but it got rejected, so Duran is banned for 3 games. I definitely like Watkins, but the thing is that for me at that price, a player that's not completely nailed, it's probably worth it for the next 3 game weeks, but it got rejected, so Duran is banned for 3 games. I definitely like Watkins. At the same time, it's the thing is that maybe a transfer waiting to happen if he starts to get benched again. So hopefully for you, Charlie, you will get a lot of points the next 3 to 4 game weeks. At the same time, it's the thing is that maybe a transfer waiting to happen if he starts to get benched again. So I got a replacement in Jackson against Bournemouth in game week 2. So you like transferring Watkins this game with a plan to move him on to Watkins in game week 21. That sounds like a really good plan, to be honest. So I got a replacement in Jackson against Bournemouth in game week 2. Ah, so you like. So it's like when you have Jesus as well. Like you game week 21. That sounds like hopefully plan, to be honest. So he can continue playing and deliver points. Really, really disappointing game in game week 18 from Jesus, considering his performance, of course, against Crystal Palace. Really, really disappointing against Ipswich, but he gets subbed off. And can't remember the minute, but it was like continue playing. Was it 60 something? 68. Really, really disappointing game in game week 18 from Jesus. That's kind of concerning for Jesus owners. But I think that it was a decent punt going for him considering the fixture. But yeah, trying to choose which 11 to start of Kepa, Torres, Timber, Trent, Gabriel. That's kind of concerning for Jesus owners. I think that it was a decent punt going for him considering the fixture, but yeah. Trying to choose which 11 to start of Kepa, Torres, Timber, Trent, Gabriel. So you have to bench 2 out of those players. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13 players. So you have to bench. Right, so just listed 3 defenders, so they have to start, right? And the goalkeeper. Let's see, Kepa, goalkeeper. 4 defenders. Paul Torres, not a big fan. I would probably play Timber, Trent, and Gabriel. Bench Paul Torres and listed 3 defenders, so they have to start, right? Probably goalkeeper. Rogers as well. Kepa, goalkeeper. It's between Rogers and Ahmad. I would probably close call between the two, to be honest. Of course, Salah, Palmer has to play Watkins, Sarr with a really good fixture against Southampton. Watkins, if you bring him in, he has to play Jesus. Probably going to be in last game week. Isak as well. So it's between Ahmad and Rogers. For Salah, Palmer has to play Watkins. I would probably bench really good fixture Ahmad, to be honest. Paul Torres, bring him in, he has to play, and Jesus. Ahmad. Probably going to be in last game week. Isak as well. It's between Ahmad and Rogers. For Salah, Palmer, I would probably bench really good fixture Ahmad, to be honest. Paul Torres, bring him in, he has to play, and Jesus. Ahmad. Last game, Isak as well. Between I like the plan of getting Jackson in. I think that he'll probably get benched next game week or pretty soon, considering Maresca's comments about Cole Palmer playing together with Joao Felix. I think that we'll probably see Jackson benching this game week or the next in game week 20, but definitely think that he is first choice. He will continue playing and do well for Chelsea. So we still have a decent fixture run coming up. So actually, Isaac would be my preferred option. Next on list would be Chris Wood, but Jackson is a really good option as well. When we consider fixtures and not form, I think that probably Mateta is a decent option as well. Considering that sometimes fixtures actually creates form. Next on list would be Chris Wood, but Jackson is a really good option as well. when we consider fixtures, I've had those two benched most of the week. Yeah, it's a decent option as well. Kind of makes sense considering that Rodgers is actually in pretty decent form. Watched the game against Man City and he was looking really good, so I would probably start him in game week 19, to be honest. Plan is game week 20, Timber to Robinson. Kind of makes sense. And game week 21, Watkins to Jackson. I'll go from there depending on situation with my team. Yeah, that sounds like a decent plan. I think that it's maybe probably a bit early to sell Timber. Plan is game week 20, Timber to, but however, he is probably a transfer waiting to happen, considering that White will be back at some point. So selling Timber, like taking the points and the cash and running away is probably a really good option as well. But however, he is probably a transfer waiting to happen, considering that White will be back at some point. So selling Timber, like taking the points and the cash. Actually, when you have this kind of plan to like bring in Watkins for game week 19, play him 3 game weeks, we know that he'll definitely start, probably play 90 minutes. I think that if you have the free transfers to do this, I think it's a really good punt, to be honest. Kind of plan to like bring. I can afford Davis to Castan next week as well. Always an option. Weeks we know that he'll definitely start. Yeah, I think that if you want Castan, it's like at that price. I think that it's definitely worth it. We saw in game week 18 he got an assist as well. You know that he is really attacking on nature, and Kenny Tete is out for 8 to 10 weeks. That was last week, so now it's probably 7 to 9 weeks, but that's still a lot of game weeks. So in game week 18, he got an assist as well. At the price, I think that Castan is still a decent transfer in. Kenny Tete is out for 8 to 10 weeks. That was last week, so now it's probably 7 to 9 weeks. As you can see in the right corner on the graphics, I actually have Castani is as one of my preferred transfers in on the watch list. Timber as well, to be honest. So 2 other players you have mentioned is actually on my watch list. So Castan, Timber, my preferred option, and first on my watch list for defenders this game week is Munoz from Crystal Palace. If I had more free transfers, I would probably try to feed him into my team. We had a discussion earlier on this stream about selling Kirkis to bring in Munoz. I'm not a fan of selling Kirkis, but I'm definitely a fan of bringing in Munoz. So if you have the available transfers, it's probably worth it. We had a discussion earlier on this stream about selling Kirkis to bring in Munoz. I'm not a fan of selling Kirkis, but I'm definitely a fan of bringing in Munoz. So if you have the available transfers, it's probably worth it. Earlier on the stream about selling Turkeys to bring in Munoz. Kind of selling Turkeys, but I'm definitely a fan of Munoz. So yeah, really worth it. I just realized I have a slight issue. Keva can't play in game 21 as he's on loan from Chelsea, unless Flecken is injured. While the motion starts, probably have to make keeper trend. Yeah, so I've seen a lot over at X as well, having both Fleckend and Fabianski. So slight issue Keva can't play in game 21 as I definitely think that if you have both of them, it's worth using a transfer. Yeah, Kepa, we know that he's only out for one game week, but yeah, so I've seen a lot like willing to well, having both Fleckend and Fabianski, so save a transfer and get 0 points from your goalkeeper. I think it's probably, especially if you pick someone long term, I think it's definitely worth using a transfer on your goalkeeper at this point. Save a transfer and get 0 points from your goalkeeper. I think it's probably, especially if you pick someone long term, I think it's definitely worth using a transfer on your goalkeeper at this point. His fixtures from game of 21 onwards are bad, to be fair. Probably would be the time where I will want to sell him. His fixtures from game of 21 onwards are bad, to be fair. Probably would be the time where I will want to sell him. So hopefully the echo in the sound is fixed. Now just had to turn down the system volume in Unify. So I have this new microphone, not figured out all the settings and stuff like that, but please let me know in the comments how it sounds. But I just noticed you have Palmer captain. What thinking about him over Salah? So the reasoning for going Cole Palmer over Salah for captaincy in game week 19 is actually it's kind of based on eye test and kind of based on opposition stats. Really liked what I saw from Cole Palmer in game week 18. He looked really good. The goal was magnificent, and he probably should have got more returns as well. When it comes to Salah, of course, you can't really argue about Mo Salah when it comes to his returns and what he has done recently, but at some point, if you want to gain ground, it's like you have to take some risks, and in a minute I will quickly show you the opposition stats for both Cole Palmer and Mo Salah in game week 19. Who should I replace for Saka? Kind of depends on your team, to be honest, but my favorite at the moment would probably be Esse. He played in game week 18 and is the talisman for Crystal Palace, and they have the best fixtures going forward. He's not nailed on for penalties for Crystal Palace, but he will share them with Mateta. So, but however, he's on most set pieces. Really talented player. Not been that good when it comes to FPL points this season, but he's been injured twice. He's back now, so I think that SA is probably a really good option. Not been talked about that much because when Saka got injured, he was yellow flagged, so I think that's one of the reasons why SA has kind of gone under the radar. So let's see. In game week 19, Mo Salah, he is playing against West Ham. They have kept one clean sheet in their last 4 games. Only conceded 3 goals, so that's really impressive stuff from West Ham. But when we take a look at big chances conceded, shots on target, and expected goal, we can see that West Ham, they are actually mediocre when it comes to defending. So especially the shots on target are really worrying for the West Ham fans. So these are the stats for West Ham. Conceded few goals, but not that impressive. As mentioned, when it comes to expected goals conceded. So not a really good picture for Liverpool, to be honest, when we consider West Ham. When I think about West Ham this season, without taking a look at the stats, it's like West Ham, they are conceding a lot, but only 3 goals in the last 4 game weeks, and they're like mid-table for expected goals conceded. But when we take a look at Cole Palmer and Ipswich, so Ipswich, they have kept 0 clean sheets, conceded 8 goals, which is not too bad, 8 goals, 14th. But when we take a look at those other stats, big chances conceded 15, shots on target conceded 22, and expected goals 8.52. So Ipswich, one of the worst teams when it comes to defending, and hopefully if I captain Cole Palmer for game week 19, he will be hopefully this game will be a game with a lot of goals. Who have West Ham played? Quick look. Last 4 game weeks for West Ham. Yeah, Southampton in game week 18, as mentioned, they played against Brighton game week 17, Bournemouth game week 16, and Wolves in game week 15. So yeah, get your point. Not the best opposition for West Ham, to be honest. That's probably the reason. Why they only conceded 3 goals. But it's also worrying that they have 25 shots on targets conceded. When it comes to Ipswich, let's have a quick look at Ipswich as well. last 4 game weeks for Ipswich. Hmm. So in game week 18, obviously Ipswich played against Arsenal. Only conceded 1 goal in that game. In game week 17, they lost 4-0 against Newcastle, and in game week 16, it was Wolves victory against Wolves 2-1, and game week 15, Bournemouth, they were defeated 2-1. So mixed fixtures for Ipswich, but even though they were kind of impressive in game week 18 against Arsenal, I still think that Ipswich is one of those teams that at any point can start like leaking goals. So I definitely think that Cole Palmer might be a really good captain option next game week. I didn't realize how bad Ipswich were, but were they that bad versus Arsenal? So it's not like I watched the game against Arsenal, and I can't really blame them, but I'm kind of disappointed in Arsenal, to be honest. When they got 1-0 up, they were like starting to play really defensively, really conservative, not taking any risks at all, to be honest. So I think that they were like playing safe last, especially in the second half. They were, of course, controlling the game after the goal from Kai Havertz, but I think that probably that 1-0 is probably not only because Ipswich were that good at defending. I also believe it's a bit because Arsenal were not that willing to attack after going 1-0 up. Both my goalkeepers, Fabianski and Flecken, got injured last game week. I'm also looking for a Saka replacement. I have 2 free transfers. What would you recommend? So it when it comes to fixtures and value for goalkeepers, it's probably, I think that Henderson probably is the best option at the moment. If you only have one Arsenal defender, I would go Raya. Seeing that you are selling Saka as well, you have this one Arsenal spot available. So if you don't have a Crystal Palace defender, I would go for Henderson. If you only have one Arsenal defender, I would go Raya. And when it comes to the replacement for SA, I would probably go with a punt on Ebrechi SA, to be honest. I'm really considering selling Bruno Fernandes to bring in SA. This would mean that I would bench Lewis Hall next game week. It's really 50-50, to be honest, when it comes to my transfer for game week 19. Not really sure. I'm really tempted, but I'm also tempted to just save and have 2 free transfers for game week 20. But yeah, please let me know in the comments what do you think is the best option for my teams. Bench Lewis Hall, sell Bruno and bring in SA, just keep it as it is. FPL FOMO, Salah captain for me this game week, just going with the most popular choice. So when it comes to captaining Salah, especially if you are satisfied with your rank, it definitely makes sense. Seeing in game week 18, he was close to 200% owned, so definitely makes sense to captain Salah, and it's definitely the safest option. Do you see Bruno out? I know that Bruno, he is definitely out for the next game week 19. He will not play against Newcastle, but he will be available in game week 20 against Liverpool. I know that there were some rumors about Bruno Fernandes being suspended for 2 games, but actually the red card he received against Spurs was appealed and it was taken back, so the red card he received in game week 18 counts as the first red card, so he will only miss 1 game. But the game week when he's back is at Anfield against Liverpool, so not a really good game week for him, even though he has had a bit more rest than the others. So I'm tempted to sell Bruno Fernandes and bring in SA, especially considering Crystal Palace fixture in game week 19, playing at home against Southampton, the worst defensive side in the league. I have to make a decision on what to do with Bruno. I got Iwobi for Mitoma. Yeah, I think that Mitoma was a really good punt at around game week 15, 16 when Brighton had those really good fixtures, but he has not really been delivering the FPL points that we expected. Played actually played really well, but not getting assists or goals. So selling Mitoma at this point really makes sense, especially if you have a couple of free transfers. Alex Moreno, buy or keep? Hope to play versus Everton. I would definitely not buy Alex Moreno at the moment. Not sure if he's excuse me. Not sure if he's a definite sell, but thanks. I like that essay punt. I might just go for it. He made me more tempted than Ralph. It's like I only have 1 free transfer, so I know that in some way it makes sense for me to just save the free transfer, play Lewis Hall. He's a decent option. Man United not in their best form, so for me to play 4-3-3 this game week with Lewis Hall is actually not the worst thing. But when we consider Bruno Fernandes 8.4 on my bench, that's a lot of money as well, and when he comes back from his suspension, he will travel to Anfield in game week 20, so FPL FOMO essay gonna hold this week. Ooh. Making this really hard for me to... I'm really tempted, to be honest. So at the moment, I'm close to 80-20 when it comes to selling Bruno Fernandes. In my team selection video, it was earlier this week, couple of days ago, I was really sure on just keeping Bruno, to be honest. was discussing selling him, but when we get closer to the deadline and when I look at my team at the moment with all those budget defenders, it's, and not to mention the Crystal Palace fixture at home against Southampton. So is Cunha. Oh, yeah, I know Cunha. He will probably do really well in game week 19 as well. I was really sure that he would get banned soon. So when I sold Saka, I decided to take a hit and remove Cunha. Will probably stand out as my worst transfer so far in FPL, probably, especially if he holds in game week 19. But I sold Saka to Bruno, so I had some money in the bank and I used that money to upgrade Cunha to bring in Isak. But yeah, of course, terrible outcome. At some point, Cunha probably will be banned, so I'll save that transfer for when the suspension is announced. I hope. I think you should sell Joe Pedro. Probably should sell Joe Pedro. I agree. I have some players that I probably should sell, of course. I'm talking about Bruno Fernandes, Joao Pedro not delivering, Masraoui United defense not the best at the moment. Bowen has really tough fixtures as well. Havertz not playing as Arsenal's number 9. So my team at the moment is not in a really good state. So I'm not sure if I will get a fifth consecutive green arrow for game week 19 because I don't really feel that confident when looking at my team. But if I bring in SA, it will probably look a bit better. Fabianski as well. So I have a few fires to put out. Cunha has had 320k transfers in this week, which is surprising. That's definitely surprising, but when we consider that most managers are mostly looking at the top point scorer when they do their transfers, then probably makes sense as well because Cunha, I read that he is the highest scoring attacker at the moment. So when you see Cunha at his price next to Haaland, who's probably second or third on the list, it makes sense for the casual manager to just bring in Cunha. How long is Fabianski injury? I'm sorry, I have not read any concrete news about the Fabianski injury, so I'm sorry. I'll have a quick look to see if there's been any updates on Fabianski. I can see that in FPL it's not red flag but orange, so 25% chance of playing, which is probably the same as not playing, especially when they have a deputy like in Areola who is a really decent option as well. So the Metro, they posted an article on Luis Fabianski. I'll quickly read through the headlines. So Fabianski injury latest ahead of West Ham Liverpool. Fabianski remains a major doubt for West Ham's Premier League clash against Liverpool on Sunday, but Lopetegui insists Areola is ready to deputize. So I think that Areola almost certainly will play, even though Fabianski probably is okay. I think that Areola will start. Getting a lot of praise from Lopetegui in this article. No concrete news on a return date. Sorry, no concrete news on a return date for Fabianski, but I definitely think that Areola will start for West Ham in game week 19. Two of the most transferred in players is Isak and Gordon. Kind of funny to see that two of the most transferred in players ahead of game week 19, they actually have an away game at Old Trafford, and they're still being the most transferred in players. That kind of tells us that Man United are not that respected anymore. So close to 500k, of course, transfers in for Isaac. Close to 300 for Gordon. The most sold asset ahead of game week 19 is Saka. Bruno Fernandes, one of the most selected Saka replacements. He is second for most sold, and Haaland, like he has been for the last close to 10 game weeks now, Haaland has been one of the most sold assets. It's kind of ironic when we consider that Man City's fixtures are getting really, really good going forward, but I think that if you have the available funds, it's probably a punt to go against the herd and bring in a Captain Haaland for game week 19 would be a really, really good differential, to be honest, playing against Leicester. He's actually the book's favorite when it comes to anytime goal scorer, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Haaland actually do well in game week 19. I know that a lot of managers lost patience with Haaland in game week 18, especially as he missed the penalty. Of course, really frustrating, but 65% for a Haaland goal in game week 19 against Leicester. Salah is 61, and Palmer is a bit below them, actually at 51 against Ipswich. But at the moment, my captain is actually Cole Palmer. I really fancy him to do well against Ipswich. I've taken a look at both the Ipswich stats and the West Ham defensive stats, and I definitely fancy Chelsea and Cole Palmer's fixture in game week 19. Let's do a quick poll. Bruno to SA. Yes or no? Please go vote in this really simplistic poll. Do you think that with my team, do you think that I should sell Bruno Fernandes to bring in Ebreche SA? Or do you think that I should just keep the team as it is and play Lewis Hall? So I'll quickly show you the stats, the Ipswich stats. Really promising for Cole Palmer this, especially when we consider the big chances conceded and the expected goals conceded. 8.52, 19th in the league. So I think that Ipswich are probably one of the best teams to target at the moment. So 0 clean sheets as well. Of course, Mo Salah, really good form. But when we look at the stats, when we take away the shots on target conceded, which is kind of a concern for West Ham, then I think that they are pretty decent when it comes to their defending. Oops. So this will probably be my team. I'm still tempted to sell Bruno Fernandes and bring in SA, so that would be the only alteration I would do to this team. I'm not considering a hit for game week 19, but selling Bruno to bring in SA would probably make me bench Lewis Hall, so not that big of a difference. But I would, of course, then switch to a 3-4-3 and play the same players except Lewis Hall, and SA would be in. So that's the only thing that I'm considering ahead of game week 19. Captaincy is on Cole Palmer. As mentioned earlier in the stream, it's a 80-20 decision for me at the moment. Really tempted to play Cole Palmer. Good fixture against Ipswich, and of course there is this differential element of going against Mo Salah, and of course the safety net in still having him in my team. Really tough start to the season for me, to be honest. Started without Haaland. So in the game weeks where he did really well was in game week 2 and 3, especially where he got his hat tricks, and he was heavily captained and didn't even own him. It really hurt my rank, but for game week 19 I will have Mo Salah in my team, but probably not as my captain. So taking a punt on Cole Palmer, benching Masraoui, benching Buonanotte, and as mentioned, Bruno, he might become SA, which will send Lewis Hall to my first bench spot. That's really the decisions I'll have to make ahead of the deadline. I will try to let's have a look. Yeah. I will just have to check one more time before confirming this, but I will do a deadline stream tomorrow. It's confirmed. So a couple hours before the deadline tomorrow, I will be live. Same format as now. I'll try to gather all the info and all the news before game week 19, of course, and share it with you guys. So hopefully, if you find the time, join in tomorrow, a couple of hours before the deadline. It would be really, really appreciated. So real quick, let me know if you have any other questions ahead of the deadline tonight, and I'll try to answer, but as mentioned, I will be on tomorrow morning as well. So let me know if you have any questions, and please join in tomorrow for my deadline stream. Omar Watkins instead of Raul Jimenez. So it's like kind of depends for how long you've had Raul Jimenez. To be honest, if you just got him in, I think that he's worth keeping when we consider Fulham's fixtures. But of course, Watkins is really tempting, especially now when we know that Duran is out for 3 game weeks. I would be really, really tempted. So if I had the free transfers available, I would probably go for a Ollie Watkins punt, but selling Jimenez could backfire, of course, considering Fulham's fixtures. So depends on how many transfers you have. If you have 1 or 2 free transfers, I would not go through with it. But if you have 3 to 5 free transfers, I would probably go for the Watkins punts. The problem with Raul Jimenez is, of course, that Muniz will eat some of his game time, but we also know that when Duran is back for game week 22 after he has served his ban, he will share minutes with Watkins as well. So I guess Jimenez will be benched for Muniz, especially if you have the feeling that Raul Jimenez will be benched in game week 19, that Muniz will start. Then I will definitely take the punt and sell Raul to Ollie Watkins. At least we know that he will start the next couple of game weeks, right? Really good fixtures for Aston Villa as well. So if you have the funds available, I would say that upgrading Jimenez to Watkins at the moment is a good transfer. So thanks for all your questions. Thanks for the, let's have a look, 4 new subscribers doing this Q&A. Really appreciate it. It's like, I think that in every Q&A or deadline stream I've had so far, there are always a couple of new subscribers, so that's really appreciated. And as mentioned, I'll do a deadline stream tomorrow, so if you find the time, I would be really glad if you just tuned in. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Love from Egypt. Love right back. And hopefully you have a nice evening. Really good game week in game week 19. And as mentioned, if you find a time, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks all for joining in. And hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow for the deadline stream.